All right, so day 2. I just removed all the oil. I've drained the oil and I've put a new filter in as well. This is the Mail Original OX128/1D. This is the filter I use for these cars. The old filter, which I ordered, was a man filter, and there's some slight differences within the two filters. The perimeter is a bit smaller, and the hole in the center is loose, doesn't fit nicely around the filter body on the engine, where the mail you have to actually pushing down, it creates sort of a tighter seal. You know, keep that in mind. The other thing I've done is we locked the car in top dead center before I took the clutch off, but I have also just in here locked the engine. So if you're looking at the car from the inside, it's the left side. If you're looking at it from the back, it's the right side. Now, interesting thing that I didn't know is the locking points for the Boxster. Looking at it from the back, right front, left back. Based on what the manufacturer of the IMS, which is a European part solution, the one I'm using, has advised, is there is no need to lock the bank 2, which is on the left side, looking at it from the rear. So I haven't done that, I've only done the front. That's why the kit only comes with 2 new covers. Now I'm going to take out the tensioners. The rear main seal was leaking, so that's great that I've got a new rear main seal as well. I gave it a bit of a clean up last night, so I'll tackle the IMS first, then the rear main seal, I think. So next thing to happen is the 2 tensioners to come out, one which is right here, and the other one which is, when I find it, just up there, right here. So, just in here. Right, there is the other tensioner. All right, so let's get that job done, and we'll go from there. These 2 need a 32mm spanner to take them out. Put a bucket underneath because some oil will come out. All right, back soon. All right, so this is my old tensioner. When you take them out, you actually can't compress them until you get the oil out of them. So, you know, you need to get all the oil out of them before you can actually compress them. Now, one thing I saw in another video is that someone goes, oh, you know, one's higher than the other. It's actually not the case by that significant amount, because if you look at the base here, you can see that actually one has a thicker base. So when you bring them up, right, they all line up exactly where they're supposed to. Now, I did measure it, and the new one is about 2 mils taller. I don't know if that is by design, re-engineering, or if it's just that this is no longer going up as far as it should. This is definitely a lot easier to press than that one, even when I've lubricated that. So keep that in mind. And I've just put a B for easy reference for the bottom, and the other one I've just put an S for side, so I know which one's going where when I replace them. Okay. What I've done is I've unloosened the center nut. I'm just going to leave it on here. There we go, just like that, just enough to grab. I've undone the 3 bolts. Now this is a bit that you always shit yourself, I guess. I've checked, I've locked it in, I've tied the cams, the 2 tensioners are out. I'm hoping to God that everything else is the way it should be. So I'm going to pry this out now, then we'll see what the bearing's like in there, then we'll try and get it out, and hopefully this bit will all go smoothly. The hardest bit of this whole exercise is trying to actually get this flange out and get something behind here to wedge it out. It's just not budging. I've got this moving left and right, like so. You know, so the whole thing moves, but I just cannot get the actual flange, the front cover out. So I'm going to keep persisting, try and get something behind there, and hopefully I can tap it out with a little screwdriver and see what happens. I finally got the top off, and just as I thought, everything looks in surprisingly good condition. There's a bit of, in here, a bit of what looks to be like a bit of old gasket that may be caught or something. It's a little bit rough, but the bearing in the middle, beautiful and smooth. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this. Nothing wrong with this at all. It feels fantastic. So, actually, no, look, it actually feels good, but there's, I can actually feel a little vibration coming through on some of the turns, so maybe it is on its way up. Anyway, I'm here now, I'm going to replace it. Circlip out next, and then we'll try and pull it out. So that actually came out quite easily. Looks pretty good in there. Let's go inspect the bearing now. This is my old IMS. Seals are in perfect order. Don't know why there's a bit of rust here, which is of a concern. I'm wondering if at some point a head gasket or something like that had happened, or if this is normal. It actually runs quite smooth, so I actually don't think there's anything at all wrong with this, but you know what, like I said, it's peace of mind, and it's good to know that this is not going to be an issue for me in the future. Alright, now to cool down the new one. And get the new one on. Now, you can have a look at this. That's a lot wider, as you can see. Big change from, you know, the old one to the new one. So hopefully everything will be great after this is done. Got to go put this in the freezer now. Every time I've read a blog or looked at a video or looked at instructions, there's a few things I've never understood. So I've given this a good clean inside now. So what we've actually got here is this bit here, and you'll see this move, right? That's the actual IMS shaft, and you can see that it's actually got a lip here, right? So when they talk about the bearing, push it in until it bottoms out, it's going to bottom out on the back of that. So you'll know when that happens. Now, one thing I've noticed is that this is ever so slightly to the left, probably because I've still got the tensioner, the top tensioner in on the Banks 456. So one thing I did realise though is these screw holes go all the way through the block, right? I can see the light through these holes. So what I'm going to do is, so I don't have to take out the other bank, I actually got these little bolts, and I'm going to put these in here, and I'm going to get them to the point just that they add enough pressure to that so I can center it, so I can then put the IMS in without worrying about it being centered, not centered, and also having to remove the third tensioner. All right, I'll let you know how it goes. All right, well, I've actually, even though these are there, they're actually not doing anything. They're not touching anything. Only this one is. It's putting pressure. I've pushed this over and put a little bit of pressure on it, and that's actually now centered that bearing up. So I should be in a good position to put the new one in. I'll go get it out of the freezer and try and whack it in. The new IMS in with the European part solution IMS kit, you need to put some Loctite around the bearing before you put it in. So make sure the surface is nice and clean, and then slowly jiggle and get it into place and get the cover on and tighten everything up to torque. It was pretty straightforward. The hardest thing was actually getting the old cover off there. So now I'm going to drill a couple of holes in the old rear main seal, clean that up and get the new one on. Alright, so what I did was I drilled 2 holes in here. Now one thing I don't like is that there's a metal ring in here, so there's little filings that come off, so be really careful when you're drilling and stop every second or two and get rid of all the filings around there so you can minimize the amount of potential filings that might fall into the block. You don't really want that, that's not good. Anyway, I've just made a hole, screwed a screw into it, and now using a pair of pliers, I'm just going to grab it like so and pull it out. There it goes, here it comes. And see there, that's come out there and come out there. I might have to do the same here to get this out. All right, I got that main seal out. Now, one really cool thing about this is you can really see I guess some of the inners of the motor here and potentially what condition things are in. And you can see there's a chain guide with there, that's a pivot point there, with the chain tensioner there, and it looks from here, from what the little bit that I can see, it looks in great condition. Chains look good, really clean inside, very happy with it. There's the other chain tensioner, which is where the plug here pushes up against for the chain inside. So I'm going to have a little look around, clean the seal here, and then look at the best way to get the new seal in. I've taken out the old one, I've cleaned all around, used a thinner to make sure that there's no grease or anything in there. Here's the new seal. Now I've had to make a hole there so it will fit in on top of there, but now we're just going to sort of push it in and then get it into its position. Alright, so rear main seal's in. It's I'm hoping that's going to be okay because I didn't have the correct machine to do it. I've tried to check that everything is at the same depth, so fingers crossed, because you don't want to be doing this job again. It looks good, don't know what else to say. Next is I'm going to put the tensioners back in and unlock the engine and spin it a full revolution, make sure everything is okay, and then if that's all okay, I'll continue to put everything else back together. Alright, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-prime the new tensioners, make sure they're full of oil before I put them in. I'm going to fill this with oil, let it go into the hole, wait till the bubbles leave, and that should be adequate to get going. Alright, so everything's in, cleaned up. The tensioners are both in there and under there. They're torqued to 59 foot-pounds. The centre screw on the IMS is torqued to 34 foot-pounds, and the outside screws to 13 foot-pounds. Then I've come in, I've removed the lock from the cams. I took out the pin in the cam wheel, and I manually rotated the engine a full 360 degrees to make sure everything went around as normal with no noises or nothing stopping it. So with that said, that looks all good. And now it's time to put the flywheel on. Now what I've got, you can see there's a pin in that corner there, so that lines up on the flywheel. So I marked the flywheel before I took it off. But what I realised is I think my mark on the body has gone now. I know roughly where it is, and I'll put a new mark on it once I get it on. And then I'm just going to use one of the old bolts to hold it in place, and then I'll use the new bolts to bring that to the torque rating it's supposed to be at. I locked the flywheel in, even though I've still got it locked to top dead center. I use this as a support, and I've put the new bolts in and tightened them all to 19 foot-pounds to start with in a star diagonal pattern, and then slowly took them all to 120 degrees. So that's what that mark on those is. Originally that was up at, they were all facing up, and they're just slightly after 90 degrees. Now put the clutch in, pressure plate, and then ready for the transmission to go in. Now when you put these bolts in, you need to make sure you get new bolts, and no Loctite, no nothing on them. But what I did is, just to help them while you're doing the 120 on them, is just on the plate here, just a tiny smear of oil underneath the head, just to help it move around. Real thin smear. You can probably see it there. It's like, almost nothing. And that's it. All right, I'm putting the clutch plate on. I had marked everything so you can see everything's lining up to where it was. And this is my little jig I've made up to try and make sure that the clutch plate will be centered when I screw this down. So at the moment it's just hanging there, but once I bring the screws closer, I'll straighten that up before we go any further. Clutch plate is all centered, new bolts in, torque to 17 foot-pound, 17 and a half, thereabouts. Now, the fun bit, it's the gearbox dance. Let's get the gearbox back in. All right, transmission's back in. Now, hardest job of everything was getting that back in. That was a bitch of a job. Lessons learned. The alignment, based on also the way the engine and the car's sitting, is sometimes a little bit off. So just because your gearbox is on the jack, you may have to tilt it left or right to get it there, and the angle also plays a very important part. Another thing I found is trying to get the supports back on. I managed to get one side on, the other side wouldn't go. I had to re-jack it up further than what I thought to get the other side in to straighten up the engine. I did that after I put a couple of the bolts in. I haven't got all of them in that support the gearbox to the engine, but I tightened them to the point that the metal's touching metal. So you may need to do that to get that in. I haven't tightened these top ones yet. These are all loose, gave me a little bit of play, but now I've got to go through, get all the bolts into the gearbox engine mount and tighten them up, and then work my way back.